Hello, class. This is Mr. Reynolds, and sorry we had some technical difficulties last class, so we're going to redo a certain section. So about the first 4 minutes ish you've done before. You can answer questions with that. I left those on there, but you'll have new things to do for today, Friday the 27th. There was a whole section that didn't record that I thought it was, so I apologize for that. Anyway, so we start out, we had looked at joints on, we looked at parts of a long bone on Monday, and then some joints starting on Tuesday, okay? And so we looked at freely movable joints, diarthroses. Those are freely movable joints, and for it to be freely moving, that means the bones do not touch. We looked at the shaft. We looked at the bulb-shaped ends, which we'll name in a little bit. Shaft, bulb-shaped end. Okay. You had done the types of joints before. You took some notes on those only. And there were 6 types of freely movable joints. One was in the thumb only that we think allowed for an opposable forethumb. So primates could then grasp things. We think that was a huge deal in human evolution. So the saddle joint, which is in the thumb. The phalanges that move in one plane only, like a door, those are hinge joints. The ones with the widest range of motion, where your arm hooks into the pectoral girdle, your femur hooks into the pelvic girdle. Those are ball and socket joints. Like I said, they had the widest range of motion. A couple days we'll be doing the different movements of freely movable joints, and we'll see more movements associated with the ball and socket joint than anything else. Okay, the ones in the vertebrae and the carpal bones and the tarsals that slide over each other are called gliding joints. The ones in your knuckles or in the mainly around the knuckles, they're not quite egg-shaped, they're more of elliptical orbits, so ellipsoidal joints, also known as condyloid joints. And the last one, like in basketball, you put the pivot foot down, and then you can rotate about it. You can rotate around the axis, like your atlantoaxial joint, with the head rotating, with the screwdriver motion in the proximal radial ulnar joint. Those are all pivot joints. Okay. All right. Next slide. The freely movable joint. Oh, it's also called a synovial joint. It'll make sense since you did some of these notes the other day. There's synovial fluid in the joint. Okay, the shaft of the bone, the bulb-shaped end, shaft of the bone, bulb-shaped end of it. Okay, the shaft is the diaphysis, which you learned Monday. The bulb-shaped end is the epiphysis. And the type of bone, the diaphysis bone, the type of bone, it's real close. So like layers of paper on top of it. It's real close to each other. So that's compact bone. Okay. In the epiphysis, there's spaces in there. So when someone looks at it, it looks like they can see the spaces. Oh, it looks like a spongy bone. Okay. We'll also need to be, I'm going to change color here. We're also going to need to be aware of the epiphyseal disc, the growth plate. Also known as epiphyseal disc. Okay. All right. Around the, like I said, since there's a tremendous amount of pressure. I mean, like we said, picturing your knee, there's the bones are not touching, which means there's got to be a tremendous tremendous amount of pressure in here, and there is with fluids. Okay, fluids can handle they can generate a tremendous amount of pressure. So with that said, these structures surrounding it, holding in that fluid, containing that tremendous amount of pressure, have to be really, really strong. So I'm going to make this pretty thick, and it's kind of an ugly looking thing, but it's very, very thick, and it's whitish tissue around it. This is known as the joint capsule. Okay. And again, up to this point, this is all stuff that we did the other day, and that's part of the video that worked out. Okay. Inside, I didn't have this part on there, but you had to answer a question on it. This space in here, this space is the joint cavity. Okay. This space is filled with synovial fluid. That is the fluid that's present. And it's made by this thin membrane. I'm going to put this right inside the joint capsule. Okay, this is the membrane that makes the synovial fluid. Its name is going to be, voila, synovial membrane. Okay. Now this is part of the video that didn't come through, the stuff that I was saying on it. I think eventually if you ever have to, when you have to take your car into the shop to get it worked on, they take it in the garage, they stand back, they press a button, and this hydraulic jack lifts it up to the ceiling. So we're just standing there out of the way. Okay, and that's fluid pressure on it. So if there's fluid present, then the pressure is called hydraulic fluid or hydraulic pressure. If it's hydraulic pressure, that means there's fluid there, where it increases, the force multiplies a number of times. So, like I said, there's a tremendous amount of force in here with the fluid present inside this joint. All right. I'm going to the next slide. Okay. Again, let's give the diaphysis, epiphysis, diaphysis, epiphysis, joint capsule, membrane, real thick around it, goes all the way around it. We had spongy bone. In the epiphysis, compact bone. We had epiphyseal disc, which is the growth plate. We had the synovial membrane, making synovial fluid. Oh, one thing we did not do, we'll make this a dark blue, around the ends of the epiphysis, we're going to have what? Remember that from the last so many days? Makes it smoother, cuts down on friction in the joint, and that's at the end of the bones where they join with another bone, they form the joint. Oh, articular cartilage. Okay. In some joints like the knee, they're inside the joint. That was a question on there that one person got right, okay, because they looked it up. There were, sometimes, like I said, in the joint, there's an extra pad of cartilage. There's an extra pad of cartilage that may be present in there to help absorb some shock, and that is called the meniscus. Some larger joints have that. Okay, an extra pad of fibrocartilage in there to help absorb some extra force. Okay, outside the joint. So outside the joint, there's also sometimes a sac of this yellow thing is going to be it's going to be a tendon that's going around. Okay, so the yellow thing is a tendon where it's going to be moving on top of it, and this light blue structure. Okay, sometimes to cut down on friction where there's tendons moving over bones, it'll be a sac of synovial fluid. Okay, and this is called a bursa. One of them is a bursa. Okay, a sac of synovial fluid. All right, and usually those are found on the outside of joints to help cut down on friction on usually tendons that are moving over the joint. That is that's it for now. Thank you very much.